Morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night to all around the world. Welcome to the GLOMCON seminar on June 16th, which, as you know, is an educational partnership between ISN and GLOMCON. We are looking forward to Dr. Geetika Singh to share her experience. Dr. Geetika.
Thank you so much, Dr. Surya, and it's always a pleasure to be on GlomCon, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to show a little bit of my work. Right. Thank you. Today I will be talking about IgA nephropathy and other glomerular diseases containing IgA and how we can use KM55 as a tissue biomarker. I have no conflicts of interest to declare. So for this next maybe 45 minutes, this is the way I thought we could structure it, talk about our understanding of the pathogenesis of IgA nephropathy, the discovery of KM55, a little bit about that. And then I really want to take you through a series of cases, pattern-based, that's what we like to do. I am a pathologist, and how we could use KM55, and then sort of put out there a potential algorithm on how we can look at IgA containing glomerular diseases. So to start off, we must understand that IgA, unlike other immunoglobulins, is really of two types in the body. You have the serum IgA, which is predominantly monomeric, 90% IgA1, and this is produced in the bone marrow. And that's the predominant type of IgA in the serum, along with a little bit of backflow from mucosal IgA, which, as we understand, is really the largest amount of IgA is actually being produced at mucosal sites, and it's washing over the mucosa, and it's really responsible for that local immunity at that site. And we know that the predominant mucosal sites of production of IgA are the gastrointestinal tract, the respiratory tract, and the genitourinary tract. Unlike the serum IgA, the mucosal type IgA is actually dimeric. And this dimeric IgA has a little bit of a J chain. There's a J chain there which connects it. So you can see that it's very easy for us to differentiate whatever IgA is being produced in the bone marrow and what IgA is being produced at a mucosal site, because they're so different. So what we already know from elegant studies, which happened early on, actually started in the 80s, and here I'm just showing you Nephrology 2007. What do we know about IgA nephropathy? From early on, we know that the mesangial deposits are actually of this polymeric or dimeric IgA1 with the detectable J chain that I was speaking about. So we know that the IgA is a mucosal type IgA. We also know that in the serum, there is an increase in poorly galactosylated, or what we call Gd-IgA1, or the galactose deficient IgA1. With this sort of baseline information, the question that comes up, which brings out the hypothesis of how IgA nephropathy develops, is to try and answer the question about how does this mucosal type IgA enter the circulation? And the hypothesis for that can be sort of a combination of two, I would say, the mishoming and the four-hit hypothesis. So let me just take you through this. So the mucosal immune system with various sort of triggers, including environmental or dietary antigens, mucosal infections, all of this is resulting in TLR activation. And now you have to think about all those mucosal B cells, which are priming to produce mucosal plasma cells, which are IgA producing. So that, of course, is the first hit in the four-hit hypothesis. And we know that there are certain mediators that are important and really taking off in clinical trials. And the mediators are APRIL and BAFF. Now, that's all fine. You have a mucosal site and you're producing all this mucosal IgA, but how is it reaching the kidney? So it needs to enter the systemic circulation for that, which brings up the mishoming hypothesis, wherein these primed mucosal B cells are going to systemic sites, maybe homing in at the bone marrow, and they are now secreting this poorly galactosylated IgA1 into the systemic circulation. So you have something which the systemic